podcast you've been looking for all along. Step into the life of urban exploration with guests from around the world. Welcome to No Tracers. Welcome back to the No Tracers podcast. It's time for another one, guys. This week on the podcast, I'm speaking with Urbex from Adelaide, Australia. Super excited. I love talking to the Australians. I lived in Western Australia for about a couple of years back, and I love getting to get them on the podcast and have them share their stories. They do something called draining over there in Australia. It's huge there, and so we're going to be diving in more about that and a bunch of Urbex's explorations, his stories, his almost injuries, his scariest moments, things like that. So if you guys are new to the podcast, please hit that subscribe button so you get notified every time there's a new episode, which is every Friday, but I'm trying to do it more frequently. I would love to do 2 of these a week if possible. So if you want to be on the podcast, hit me up at no.tracers on Instagram or no tracers on TikTok. You can see my content there. You can also reach out to me, shoot me a DM, and we can chat. We can get you on the podcast. I'd love to do these twice a week. And if you're a veteran listener of the podcast, please do me a favor and leave a rating and feedback at the bottom of the No Tracers page on Apple Podcasts. You'll see other people's ratings and feedback. And if you leave a rating and feedback, I will mail you a signed photo print from an abandoned place that I have explored as a way of saying thank you for doing that. Before we get into this, I need to thank our partner, Liquid Death Water. If you've never heard of Liquid Death Water, it's water from Austria. And if you want to murder your thirst, check out this ad I made for you in 3, 2, 1. From the streams of the Austrian Alps comes a new kind of water. A water that is sure to raise you from your grave. If you're tired of buying cases of plastic water bottles that contain carcinogens and God knows what else, or if you're trying to lower your waste footprint, Liquid Death comes in beautifully rugged aluminum cans. Murder your thirst with a can of Liquid Death. Check the link in the description and use code JUSTTHELETTERK at checkout for 10% off your order. Liquid Death. Murder your thirst. So if you want 10% off a case of Liquid Death Water, or 7 cases, or 20 cases of Liquid Death Water, I see you guys ordering 20 cases of water on the Liquid Death affiliate site. So if you guys want 10% off your order, use code JUSTTHELETTERK at checkout and you'll get 10% off automatically. Or hit the link in the description and it will automatically apply that code for you at the Liquid Death website. All right, guys, without further ado, let's get Urbex on the podcast. Please introduce yourself and how long you've been exploring to the No Tracers audience.
All right, so hey, I'm Urbex. The name is kind of a joke because in Australia we've got like this franchise called Gyms, and they literally do everything. Like if you're in an abandoned spot, they've got like Gyms asbestos removal, Gyms security systems. So I thought, Gyms Urbex was kind of funny. So I've been exploring. So yeah, when I was a kid, my dad would like take me to like drains and abandoned places and stuff when I was really little. And but I think the first like big abandoned spot I did was back in like 2008, and it was like called the Julia Farr Center, and it was called like a center for incurables. So that it was sort of like a hospice, and it was probably like the biggest spot in Adelaide that we've had, and it was like a big 5-story sort of asylum type thing, and it had like a basement and a theater and like a morgue in the basement, a really cool rooftop and stuff. So yeah, everyone would hit that back in the day, but I think it got demolished around like 2012. So yeah, a lot of cool stories and memories in that place.
And since you're in Australia, you guys do a lot of draining. Like you had mentioned that your dad took you draining. Can you talk more about that, like what it is and why it's so popular over there?
Oh, yeah. Well, we've got some cool drains here in Adelaide. Not so much as big as like on the East Coast, like Melbourne and Sydney. They've got like massive drain systems, like stuff that goes for like, kilometers, like crazy mazes. But we've got a few cool things here. Like we've got, um, and you can kind of see like the history under the streets. There's like this one in Adelaide that's like this underground river, and it sort of passes over all these like 1800s bridges and stuff like that. But yeah, there's like a whole sort of sub genre of like urbexing that's just like draining. I've got a few mates who do that, and yeah, they're super into it. Like doing all the street art and drains, and setting off fireworks and crazy shit like that. Yeah.
Wow. It's so fascinating to me because like here in California, we don't really I don't know many people that do that kind of stuff, so I feel like it's a very Australian thing to do. And, I've spoken to a couple other Australians on the podcast and they're into draining as well. So yeah, I just wanted to know a little bit more about it because it's so fascinating to me because I've personally never gone draining, so next time I go to Australia, I'm going to definitely have to give it a shot.
Oh yeah, for sure. Come here and we'll hit some drains. That'd be wicked. But you got to be
Hell
careful.
yeah.
Like, there's a saying like, when it rains, no drains, because that would suck being like swept away. In a drain. You got to be really careful. Yeah. And I think like even in Sydney, some people got killed a few years ago doing it, and there's like a like memorial for them that all the urbexes have put like sort of in the drain. It's quite cool, but yeah, pretty horrible situation.
Wow, that's crazy that happened, but it's cool that there's like a memorial for them that the Urbex community kind of put up. I love that. That really shows that the community has a lot. It's like a family, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah.
And then when did photography come into play for you? Like when did you pick up a camera and start documenting your explorations?
Well, I've always, been into photography, sort of, but like recently, probably about 2000, maybe 2016 or so, I picked up a Sony A7, and yeah, I've been using that ever since. But sort of before that, I was into sort of 35 millimeter, like shooting film photography stuff. So that kind of got me like to know the camera and stuff, and then I got into digital. But now I've kind of gone back to 35 mil again. Just picked up like this old Soviet camera, like a Zenit, and that thing is built like an absolute tank. Like, throw that around in a bando, and yeah, it wouldn't get damaged. And there's this really cool attachment you can get to it. It's called like a photo sniper. You mount it on like a gun barrel. Yeah, imagine the cops breaking in and seeing you holding that.
Oh my God, that's
That'd
amazing.
be pretty
Wow.
sketchy.
And oh, for sure. For sure. And I love that there's like, it's called a photo sniper, you said?
Yeah. And it was built in the Soviet Union. So I think it was like an
Of
actual
course.
like gun barrel. And you just mount it on there, and it's got a massive zoom lens on there. So yeah,
Wow.
I got to pick up one of those.
That's unreal. I love that. And then speaking of gear, do you have any like gear recommendations for new explorers, like things that you recommend that they get if they're trying to get into this, especially for explorers that maybe in Adelaide or in anywhere in Australia, cuz like in America, we go to, Home Depot or whatever to get our masks and our flashlights, So like where are you getting your gear at and what gear do you use?
Yeah, so off the top, I really want to recommend like an M3 respirator, um, and like not from Bunnings. I'd go to one of the like the safety gear shops, because they've got the like asbestos rated ones, and I think yeah, M3 respirator and P3 filters and disposable overalls as well if you're going in a place that you know has got asbestos, because you don't want to have that like in your clothes, and then when you get in your car, it comes off of your clothes and stuff like that. Yeah, you just don't want to mess with that stuff. Also, my brother got me this cool like rechargeable torch that literally has like one of those halogen globes from a truck spotlight in there, and you just charge it up USB, and it also acts as like a you can use it to charge your camera and stuff, which is great because I always go on explores and I've got like my kit, my camera and stuff, and I turn on my camera and I'm like, oh shit, it's out of battery, so I can just plug that into the torch and charge it up like a yeah, just like a battery pack or something. And also, yeah, Doc Martens, always wear a pair of those. Like, you never know when you're gonna step on a nail or something. I went in this place once, and it literally had this like, oh, it was so sketchy. It was like half burnt down, and it had this chair with like 20 syringes stuck in it. And yeah, I was wearing just a pair of Vans. My foot, like, I stepped on a nail and it just missed my toes and like came out the top of my shoe. So I was like, shit, I gotta start wearing Doc Martens more. What else? Yeah, I've got an iPad Pro as well, and I take like LiDAR scans of like if I'm exploring like a mine or a cave or something. And it's really cool. It shoots out like a little laser and takes like a 3D map of it, so you kind of don't get lost, or you can like look back at your like map that you've made of a mine or a drain or something. And yeah, it's really cool technology.
Wow, that's brilliant. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, is that with like an app, like a specific app that you're using to take those LiDAR scans?
Yeah, there's a few. There's yeah, LiDAR scanner. It's only you can do it with the new iPhone 12 Pros. They've got like a LiDAR scan in it. But I've also got the 2020 iPad, and there's like 3D scanner app, LiDAR scanner, and yeah, you can just pretty much do that with the app. And if you go to my Instagram, I've got a link in there, and there's a bunch of LiDAR scans I've taken. So I've taken stuff of like old abandoned theaters and like mines, uh, stuff like that, and it's pretty cool. It takes photos and like puts the textures like on the actual 3D image. So yeah, it's cool. You can kind of do like a virtual urbex sort of in this time of COVID. You don't have to go out and do it. You can check it out online.
Wow, that's brilliant, and it's so cool that you've figured out how to do that, and you that's like something that you enjoy creating, and I think it's a very unique thing. Like I've never even heard of doing lidar scans in like abandoned places. Like that's so cool, and it, like you said, like just to have a virtual 3D scan of a place is like unreal. Like that's absolutely incredible, man. Like I love that you do that.
Oh, cheers. Yeah, for sure. If you got the time, jump onto my Instagram and check out the link because, yeah, you can literally scroll around and, check it out on your phone or on your computer, whatever.
And speaking of stepping on nails and having them almost go through your foot, I've had a similar experience. I was at a theme park and there was just a piece of wood on the floor and I stepped on it and the nail went two nails
Oh,
went
dude.
directly between my toes, up through the top of my shoe and I was like, "Oh my god." Like I just got
So it
so
didn't
lucky
get
cuz
you.
it didn't get me, but man, it's those close calls that make you think like I should definitely wear a different pair of shoes for sure. And speaking of that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
do you have any urban exploration injury stories? Have you ever been injured beyond like cuts and scrapes?
Well, fingers crossed. Like, I haven't been injured too much apart from, the odd sprained ankle and like scratched up. Like a couple of weeks ago, I was trying to find this like 1800s mine, and the entrance was literally in all these bushes. I was wearing shorts and t-shirt, and I sort of just dived in. And I was scratched up pretty bad after, but my mate, he goes by ADL underscore Urbex. He, he's always getting hurt. But there was this one time where we went into this amazing like 1800s mansion with this huge skylight, but getting in was kind of like that scene in Ace Ventura 2 where he's coming out of the rhino. You got to squeeze through this tiny little hole, and he grabbed some glass. Oh, there was like a bit of broken glass. He gashed his hand like really deep, and he was bleeding absolutely everywhere. And I was like, dude, let me get some bandages. You want to stop? Are you all right? And he was like, no, I'm cool. he he kind of spent the day just bleeding out. But yeah, he found a rag inside the house, and he like wrapped his hand up in it. It was so bloody. And then when we left, there was this creepy ass basement door, or like more like a hatch. But yeah, he sort of poked the bloody rag out of there and put some bloody handprints for the next person who came.
Love that. Wow. That's amazing. Speaking of like leaving handprints and, scary shit, like what is your scariest exploration?
Um, so I've got a few, but like the actual scariest one was um, me and my mate Grimbo. He goes by Exploring by with Grimbo on Instagram. But we went in this mine. I think it was we thought it was an old lead mine. It goes for kilometers, and it's really big, and it's got really cool support beams all the way through. But when you get to it, there's this massive like iron door, um, and somebody had spray painted "free crack, come on in." So we're like, all right, sweet. And we went through the door, and um, about a kilometer in, all the walls started sort of turning into this fluffy, like sort of pillow stuffing type stuff. And we realized, I was like, oh shit, I think I've read something online about this. It was asbestos, like pure asbestos coming out of the walls, kind of like tendrils
Whoa.
coming to grab us. So luckily we had our respirators and we chucked them on. And we kind of ran the gauntlet to the end. But yeah, you got to be really careful, especially with that, because like one big fiber in your lungs can give you like mesothelioma. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and apart from that one, so yeah, I'm never going back to that one again. Um, but also another one, we've got this massive abandoned slaughterhouse. It's cool. It's actually been turned into like a shopping center now, and the owner wants to keep all the like graffiti and stuff inside, which is yeah wicked. But yeah, when I first went there, this uh, there's like a squatter who's known for being not such a great dude. And yeah, I met up with some other people and we're just looking around there. And then yeah, he came up, he started screaming, he chucked this chair off the roof at me. So I just absolutely legged it out of there. Yeah.
Damn.
And
Damn.
then,
Yeah, running
just the
into
general,
squatters like that is crazy.
yeah, like usually they're cool, but yeah, that guy was a bit, you know, he was a bit mean. And yeah, then there's just the other like setting off alarms. You know, you usually
Mm.
absolutely shit yourself when you just set off an alarm. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can hear the alarm go off, there's a problem. But if you can't hear the alarm go off, then it's an even bigger problem.
Oh, yeah, that's even worse. I'm kind of happy for the audible alarms, not the
Yeah,
sneaky ones.
100%. 100%. And then can you tell me about your favorite exploration overall?
Um, oh, favorite exploration. Um, well, probably. Hmm, there's a few. Probably this abandoned animal testing lab that I went into. It was one I've been literally wanting to explore for like years because it was near my like childhood home, and I've literally driven past it for ages. But over COVID, it was finally open because nobody was there. So I went in, and yeah, it's crazy. They had um, like primate houses where they kept all the like primates to do animal testing on, and yeah, it was a pretty sad place, but really interesting as well. And then there was this big building where they had all the labs in, and then it had this creepy set of like underground sub basements, and with these big doors, and there was like a sort of quarantine airlock that you had to go into, and then it would have like double doors, and then you sort of came out into this like fully no windowed underground labyrinth of basements, and that was really scary. I was like, man, I don't want this to like the door to close and lock behind me because I would be
Mm.
totally screwed trapped in here, you know, no phone reception or anything. But yeah, um, that was
Wow.
probably one of my favorites. Also, the old, well, so Adelaide is like, it, it's called the City of Churches. It's kind of like the Bible Belt of, you know, down south of Australia, but we've got a lot of like cult compounds. Um, and sort of like not like Waco style, like full on sieges and stuff, but you know the cult leaders have done really horrible things, and they've been sort of put in jail and stuff. So all the old compounds and like all old stuff is left, you know, by the cult members and stuff, and that's got a pretty. They've got pretty interesting histories behind them. I think I can think of at least like 5 spots in Adelaide for cults. Um, yeah.
Wow. That's crazy, but it's cool that, there's that kind of stuff to explore, and I think that culture is so fascinating, like it's just always there's always like darkness to that kind of stuff, and I think that's what makes that history so fascinating because they're always like fucked up. Cults are always fucked up.
Oh, so fucked up. Yeah, like, yeah, some of these places they would like you can find news articles about it, but yeah, they'd make them, you know, one of them, they were caught stashing all these explosives and guns and stuff because they, you know, found out they thought, well, it was like a doomsday cult, so they thought the end of the world was coming and they were getting ready for that. But I've also found a lot of like journals from like the previous cult members, and yeah, it's sad to read, but you know, fascinating as well. Another one had like a stack of books written by the cult leader who's in jail now. Yeah, just and I found a bunch of cassettes which had all these crazy like preachers yelling and screaming, and yeah, I'm gonna sample some of that and put them into my music.
Yes, that's awesome. And if you have any audio of that, I would love to like stick it in right here in the podcast so people can like hear some of that stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'll dig it up. I had it on my Instagram story a little while ago, but yeah, I'll, send it through.
Perfect, perfect. And then speaking of Instagram, can you talk more about social media, what it's done for you as an explorer? Have you been able to connect with other explorers through it or make any connections through social media?
Yeah, so for the most part, it's been good. Like that Adelaide Urbex community, it's pretty small, but yeah, like I've met good friends and stuff through social media. Um, but also had run-ins with people who aren't so friendly. It's a bit like can be a bit bitchy, the urbex scene, but it's like, dude, don't post that location, like. But to be fair, some spots have got like absolutely blown up after people have posted pictures of them. Like, I think in the summer of 2019 we had this massive um, mansion that was overlooking like all of Adelaide. Um, and yeah, it was crazy, but it had been abandoned for like 5 years or something, and it was in pristine condition. I got in there when there was like literally no tags or graffiti. Not saying there's anything wrong with that. I love graffiti, but yeah, it got blown up over like 1 month, 1 or 2 months, because somebody posted a picture where you could see the view, and um,
Mm.
yeah, it got demolished um, in the start of 2020, which is pretty crazy. And just from it being, posted on social media and people like giving each other the location. So yeah, I guess, you know, you want to get your photos out there, but you also got to be a bit careful, waiting a little bit to put them out there, or, just sharing them with friends. But yeah, that's the way I see it.
Yeah, social media has its pros and cons for sure, especially with our community. Some people are very sensitive to like posting that kind of stuff. And, I'm sure you get a lot of requests for like, hey, where's this at? Like, give me the location. And like, can you talk about a little bit more about
Yeah.
not just sharing locations with anybody?
So when new explorers like hit me up, like it's cool. I want there to be more people in the Urbex scene, so I give them like sort of a bit more low key locations. Like we've got a good one in Adelaide. It's a big factory, and there's heaps to see, and it's insanely blown out. But yeah, heaps of cool street art and stuff. So I usually give them that one or some drains and stuff that can't be, too vandalized. But I usually keep the more high profile ones to myself or like a smaller group of friends who I explore with like regular, and I know I can trust them. Um, but I do, I find a lot of locations myself as well. Like, um, there's a fair bit of info online, and you can find a lot of stuff through, just trawling through Google Maps or, driving around the streets and stuff like that. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I think people forget that, like, in order to be an urban explorer, you have to put the work in. You have to do the research. You have to do the footwork, things like that. And I think that that's highly overlooked because of
Mm.
things like social media, where you can just literally send a DM and be like, hey, where's the address?
Yeah, for sure. So I usually explain a little bit about that as well when somebody just, flat out asks me. I'm like, oh, sorry, dude. Um, but yeah,
And then do you prefer to explore alone or with people?
I guess, it depends on the place. I used to explore alone a lot, just because I can be a bit more sneaky getting in and out of the place. But, some other places it's better to explore with friends, or other people who can have your back, and if there's a sketchy way getting in, they can kind of keep lookout, or you know give you a boost over a fence or something like that. um, yeah, so it's about 50-50 for me. um, but yeah,
Gotcha.
I mean, I do like exploring alone. I can spend a bit more time like setting up my shots and stuff like that.
Definitely. And do you have any goal places you haven't visited yet that you're itching to go to?
Oh man, I've got a bunch of bucket list places. Definitely, like Chernobyl's a big one. Um, I love that. And I've always been fascinated with that. Like ever since playing it on like Call of Duty, I've been like, gotta go there. And the HBO documentary is great as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and also all the history. Like I'd love to climb the like Duggar Radar, and
Yes.
stuff like that. And also the catacombs in Paris is, oh, dude, I'd love to get lost in there. It's so sick. Yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen that movie, As Above, So Below, definitely check that out because that's wicked. Um, yeah, and also, um, I think it's called Bacana in Kazakhstan with the space shuttles. That is
Oh yeah.
insane. But you're messing with like military police and stuff like that. So that'd have to be a big planned out trip. So, one day. I haven't really done much, tourism for Urbex at all, but it's something I'd love to do.
Yeah, I love every time I travel for work, I always try to find like abandoned places in the area that I can go hit while I'm gone, It's like my favorite thing to do when I travel.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, the perks of traveling for work.
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly. Exactly. And if you could live in one place you've explored for a week, which place would it be?
Oh, good question. Um, well, there's this really cool spot. I'm not sure if I'm giving up too much information, but it's like in the basement of the house. It's this big house. Excuse me. Um, and the basement goes into this big series of like mine shafts. Um, and so yeah, living there, you just have your own, personal mine shaft to explore. I've actually been in some of the mine to explore it, but the way to get to the house, it was like this massive drop. You know, like I think it was like 30 meters or something. And my mate, he was like, it was like this beam of wood, plank of wood from like the 60s or something, just sitting on top of it. And he was like, dude, I'm going to walk over it. I'm like, do not do that. I turned my back to like take some photos, and he was already over it on the other side. But I guess the tunnel did keep going, which was kind of cool. But yeah, I totally lived there. Yeah. Also maybe that mansion that got totally blown up. Like it was an amazing mansion, but like it had like I don't know what it is with rich people, but it had like 2 bidets in every bathroom. It's crazy. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, mansions, like I haven't hit a bunch of mansions, but I need to do more of that stuff just because they are so unique. Every one of them is totally different. But my last question for you is, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started exploring?
It would be research for sure, like a bunch of research, finding old articles online, scouring Google Maps. You can kind of, look at the quality of like roofs of houses to tell if they're ruins and stuff. Just driving around, scouting out places, and tent fences is another good telltale sign. Like if there's a temporary fence around it, you can tell that it's going to be abandoned, or at least in a state of like renovation or something.
Mm-hmm.
Giving away some of the secrets here.
Hey man, those tips are going to be helpful for up and coming explorers, and I know we don't like to give out all of our secrets, but
Sure.
I think it's cool that you shared a little bit about it. So if people want to follow your journey more and see your photography or your LiDAR scans, drop your Instagram or any other websites you have that you want to share right now.
Yeah, so on Instagram it's just Jims_Urbex. Yeah, pretty much that. Yeah, and then you can just find the LiDAR scans on the link at the top of the page.
All right, guys, that was my podcast with Jims Urbex, Adelaide. Thank you for coming on the podcast. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please do me a favor and leave a rating and feedback on the podcast. It helps us grow, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. Just drop a rating and some feedback of what you liked about this show down there at the bottom of the No Tracers podcast. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page on Apple Podcasts, you'll see other people's feedback and ratings, and you can join them and leave your own rating and feedback. And if you do that, I will actually mail you a signed photo print from an abandoned place that I've explored. Once again, my name is Kay. I'm known as No Tracers on Instagram and TikTok if you guys want to follow me further, or if you want to support the podcast, there are ways to do so down in the description. I'll talk to you guys again next week for another episode of the No Tracers podcast. Stay strong, keep enduring, go out, go explore something, and remember, leave no trace.